Hey, so if I go to bjjfanatics.com, what do I need to search for in order to find 3 awesome instructionals?
All you really need to do is put in ROZ, and Gravity is your friend, escapes for guys over 40, and Be a Hammer, Smash the Knees pop up. And those are the 3 that you've done so far.
Yes, and in January, I'll be going back to Boston to recruit a handful more. So stay tuned. More awesomeness on BJJ Fanatics coming your way.
We have all had that situation where after class is when we want to ask a question. And Thomas, a lot of those questions you've already answered, right, at Ask a Black Belt.
Yeah, it's another podcast that I'm running. It's on podcast, all podcast platforms, plus on YouTube. You can find it anywhere. Just search for my name, search for Ask a Black Belt. At this point, over 100 episodes, different questions, jiu-jitsu, life-related, but something that everybody comes across, and often these questions sink in our mind, but we don't ask for whatever reason. So if that benefits you, go there, listen. It actually might help your jiu-jitsu, might help your life as well. And if you have any questions, find me on Instagram and drop me a line. I'll be happy to answer your question and mention your name during the episode.
Welcome to Raw Radio.
And we are back again. We are live.
No, you ruined it.
I did?
Yeah, we've never said "and we are back." It's always "and we're live."
Okay, let's do it one more time.
No, we're leaving it. I'm leaving it.
This was your opportunity to clap.
We fell off of that.
What? You are so unforgiving. I'm doing it. And we are live.
That was a terrible clap. I could barely hear it. It's awful.
You are the worst.
I am
Lord,
the worst.
talk about negative.
I'm not negative. I just want you to be better.
Good you don't have any sharp tools.
I want to be an experienced and trusted advisor.
Wow.
Yeah, which is the definition for a mentor. See how I did that?
Nice segue.
Yeah.
Nice segue. Nice segue. Listen, when I booked Sloan, I knew it was going to be an interesting conversation. But that really, what a deep story.
Yeah, you never know, right? Some people they're characters, they look like a character, and then you start talking to them and they really, it's how they want to be perceived. Yeah. With him, I think what you see is what you get. He is a character. He's had a fun, interesting life, done a lot. And a big part of that fun and interesting life was his father. Mm-hmm. And I think we decided that because of that, we were going to talk a little bit about mentors and mentorship.
Well, let's dig into it. What does a mentorship mean to you?
Well, for me, it's always been someone who is guiding you in a positive way.
You don't think that people who guide you, who give you negative experiences, could be a mentor too?
No. I mean, by the very definition, no. I don't think so. No. Now, can you learn from those negative experiences? Obviously, yeah, of course. But then I think that those are two different things.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I think a mentor is somebody that you look up to, who influences you, like I said, in a positive way, gives you guidance, direction, a teacher. So,
who was your number one mentor in your life?
I've had a couple teachers. One teacher in particular who kind of changed the way the attitude that I had about a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Joseph Jaquez. I don't know if he's with us anymore because
it's been a while.
And then my older brother as well, who's 10 years older than me. So yeah, Joseph and Larry, and so those were mine. How about you?
I have few, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's more, but
yeah, I think I look up to my father a lot. My dad, for most of my life, we were separated. My dad lived somewhere else than I have. I always looked up to him, But to this day, we are pretty tight, even though he doesn't live on this continent. He's back in Europe, but we talk literally like a few times a week. We call each other and all that, so we have pretty tight relationship. And he always makes fun of me, but it's that plays a significant role. But if I take it, if I put that aside, and if we look at like a stranger, you know what I mean, like non-family related mentor, I had way back elementary school. So believe it or not, in Europe, in elementary school, I think this is a 4th or 5th grade, you have physics.
Yeah, you've talked about your physics teacher before.
My physics teacher made a huge impact on me. Huge impact on me. One of the things that she did was that to this day, this is stuck in my mind. But did I say this story on it?
Yeah, where like if you did nothing, you passed. If you did this extra amount, you got a C. If you did, or a B, and then.
So she did everything by book, and she was like a PhD professor teaching in elementary school. So like she had all the books written by her, right? So like you learn from her books, but essentially she was going by book every single day, and then if you learned what she taught, you had D. Like,
Okay.
you didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
You just had D. So end of each week, there was a quiz, and so I think on Wednesday, I don't remember, but like I think on Wednesday, midweek, she gave you questions that you could study. Thursday, the day before the quiz, she gave you the answers to the questions she gave you. And the only thing that changed was the variables, the numbers have changed essentially, right? But the recipe was the same every single time. So, and typically it was 3 to 5 questions per quiz, so by Friday when the quiz arrived, you knew the questions, you knew the answers, right? If you answered them, you had a D, you passed, no problem, right? Now, if you wanted a C, after you completed all the questions, you raise your hand and she gave you one extra question and that was a C. If you wanted a B, you raise your question one more time, and if your question for C was correct, she gave you a question
so you can
for
only
B.
move on.
Yes. And, and then if you wanted A, you had to go and she gave you a problem. You had to solve it in front of her. Okay. Sitting right next to her. And as I remember, the entire year that I had her, only one person went for A, ever.
Really?
Ever. Nobody ever got to that point.
On all the weeks, nobody ever got to that point. Okay.
Because nobody
Right.
ever.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So
Well, could you opt out? Could you be like, I got my B,
yeah,
I don't want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. You can be satisfied at any point of time, but if you want a higher grade, you had to continue pushing, right? So this was happening every Friday. Here's the caveat. If she ever caught you cheating, ever, for anything, you got as many Fs as there was question plus 1. And in order for you to make up any of the Fs, you had to come in on separate occasion per F and make it up, and you had to like clean the desks and do other chores around the classrooms. So guess what? Nobody has ever cheated in her class. Ever.
Sure.
Ever. Everybody was always so freaked out about this whole thing. But I'll tell you what, the physics that year was one of the favorite subjects, not only for me, but for the entire, group of the students. Like she was our favorite teacher. And this is just an example of what she's done, like what she was doing at that point, but she has a lot of impacts from just life perspective and very open. And like, obviously I was like super young and she was like the grandma with gray hair.
That's what my physics teacher was like too.
So I don't know how old
was yours
she was.
an old Irish woman, even though she was in Poland?
I don't know how old she was, but she, so anyway, that was like, she definitely made an impact on me. It was interesting. I learned a lot from her on, as far as life is concerned, and in physics, like to this day, for some odd reason, I love math and I like physics, and it is what it is. But it always painted a interesting, kind of umbrella of how people can make impact on you.
Yeah. And I think so, by her actions, it seems more so by her actions than anything else. She kind of was, that's where that mentorship came from. And I think that's a great, I often look at people when I was younger. It seemed, I shouldn't even say that. There's people that can tell you things But they have this do as I say, not as I do personality, mentality. And then there's the people I think that just like they mentor by helping you individually, but also just by leading by example. And I always gravitated towards that leading by example, how that person treats other people, how that person interacts in different situations. Those have always been my go-to mentor.
Well, I think as humans, we learn better, deeper, and easier when we can experience things on our own, but we have somebody to guide us through the experiences, right? So like, life will suck. It will. Like, it is what it is. There are some situations that you don't want to be part of, and let's not sugarcoat it. It is what it is. This is going to suck. But I'm here. I'm with you. Let's work through this. Let's get through this situation. And then, because there is a rainbow on the other side. That's the bottom line, right? That this is not the pivotal point of life ending today. Right. This will get us stronger. This will allow us to grow. This will allow us to get better, and let's experience this, right? So, versus telling do this. This is not how we're learning. We're not experiencing nothing but enforced suggestions, I guess.
Yeah, and you're just going through the motions. It's like, when am I going to be done with this?
Right.
Rather than really enjoying something.
Well, yeah, and I think even not the most pleasant experiences and situations can have conclusions drawn out of them and really be impactful for the rest of our lives. Like, matter of fact, like when I look back on my life, I've learned a lot of things from these quote unquote bad experiences versus the good ones. Like, I remember a lot of good things, right? Like, none of my life sucked or anything, but like I do remember there were the points where like my father looked at me and was like, "Yep, you fucked up. This is gonna be interesting."
Yeah.
I'll tell you, hold on, I'm going to forget this later. I want to document this. Another funny story about my physics teacher. You ready for this?
Sure.
So we are in a study group. We are in a study group and we're studying all together, right, for this quiz, right? And somebody had the sheet with the answers, right? But somehow when they were writing it down, they made an error. Okay, so now this whole class of 15, 20 kids are studying off of the sheet that is incorrect.
Great.
Okay. Well, I know. Look where this is going, right? So we good. Life is good. Boom. We ready for the quiz, right? The quiz comes along. We use the information from the incorrect sheet, right? So we go through the answers, blah, blah, blah. And, our physics teacher comes and is like, that's incorrect. Wait a minute.
You're all wrong.
Wait a minute. You all have the same answers. What's going on here? You guys were cheating. Boom. The whole class gets Fs. The whole class, without an exception. So then weeks later, we had to explain to her what happened, blah, blah, blah. We still were punished, but, fairly, unfairly, doesn't matter. But that was an interesting...
that unfair punishment, that would have ruined it for me.
There was an interesting... I just remember that when I was reflecting on that.
I remember, so for Mr. Jaquez, it was funny. I was out of school... And he was a machine shop teacher, and so in the shop classes in my high school, you would switch during the semesters, and then you would switch to a completely different shop class half the year. And there was a kid so I was out when we switched. So my first day in Mr. Jaquez's class, other kids, the rest of the class had already been in his class for a few days. So this kid came in who had been absent with a note. And in those days, you would get a note from your parents. All your teachers would sign it, and then you would hand it to your homeroom, and then they would know it was an excused absence. So he had Mr. Jaquez sign it, and Jaquez was looking at it, and he said, this looks forged. This isn't this teacher's signature. And the kid was like, yeah, it is. I was a sophomore in high school, so 15, 16. And he was like, yeah, it is. And he was like, no, I don't, I'm going to go down to the office. I'm going to talk to this person. And this was a big machine shop. So it had double doors, doors on one end and then big classroom doors on the other end. He went out the doors and he went around to the other doors and then just looked in the window watching this kid freak out. It was forged, and he's jumping up and down. I'm going to get in so much trouble. I'm going to get in so much trouble. Mr. Jaquez opened the door, walked in, and he was like, I was just messing with you. But now that I know, come with me. And I was like, I just laughed. I was like, I'll never get away with anything in this guy's class. Nothing.
Yeah.
Like, he's too smart for us. And that became one of my favorite classes in high school. It really made me change what I was doing, my trajectory in high school. So I like those experiences. It was a negative experience for that kid, but it was a very positive, impactful one for me.
Well, and that's why I was asking in the beginning if like the negative experiences still can be viewed as a mentor, right? It's like, because sometimes, you know, when we are in this bind, in this bad spot or whatever, we've done something stupid, especially as teenagers.
Well, maybe, you know, that kid, maybe that turned out to be positive for him in the long run, right? Like that day he was like, this guy's a jerk. Right. I hate this guy. This is the worst teacher I've ever had. You know, but that teacher there was nothing negative in what he did. There was no malice in what he was doing, you know. And who knows? Maybe he did know it was forged. Maybe he just said that to that kid to make the rest of us, you know. Well,
and you know, as teachers, you know, a lot of teachers out there, they, you know, we do have the responsibility of guiding the individuals who are under our umbrella, if you will. You know, our job is not necessarily tell them, and at least that's my belief. Our job is not tell our kids or our students what to do. You can make decisions on your own, I think, even in a young age. But knowing that there's a consequence behind the decision is extremely important. Yeah. You know, so like you can throw a tantrum of it if you like. You can stomp or scream or whatever, but there's a consequence behind that. Or, you know, you can, whatever, you can cheat, force a signature. That's fine. It's just there is a consequence behind that. And I'm not here to tell you not to do it. What I'm telling you, that dominoes will fall from that moment and your decision will impact how things unfold from this point on. And I think by doing that, the fact that we are making decision on our own makes it very memorable for the future.
Well, yeah, and you know, and it's fun. So I brought up the definition of a mentor, and there's a picture next to it. And it just has, you know, it talks about support, coaching, direction, success, advice, motivation, training, and pointing to a goal. But nowhere in there does it say, like, do it for them, give them the answer. Yeah. You know, it's all about letting people make their own decisions. Yeah. You know, I think I like direction, support, and motivation, I think, are good. And then when those mistakes are made, then you start giving the advice, you know, the coaching. So it's cool. It's good stuff.
You know, now I'm thinking about it. Maybe my physics teacher intentionally freaking messed us up so we all fail. She wanted to see all of us go down just so we learn.
Maybe that's because you were already calling her an old lady 30 years ago.
Oh, man. So, I loved that teacher.
Good.
What a huge.
Do you remember her name?
No, I do not. I know I do not.
You didn't love her enough to know her name?
I suppose. I mean, you make a valid point. I do not remember her name.
Mr. Jaquez, I'll never forget him. So, yeah. And listen to the episode with Sloan, because we didn't even bring up why this is the takeaway. So definitely give it a listen.
Let them listen. It was a very good episode, and I think there was a lot of little nuggets in there that really made an impact, at least on me. What a great story.
Yep, cool. All right, are we done here?
Yep.
All right, peace.
Later.
Thank you for listening to Raw Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.